Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're all warmly welcome to our very first webinar. Our topic, as we all know, is Voices of African Women in Mining on COVID-19. AWIMA is an association of African women working in the mining, oil, and gas national associations. AWIMA was created on August 19, 2015 in Nairobi. Our key objective is to advocate for the participation, representation, leadership, and inclusive empowerment of women in the extractive sector in Africa. Our membership are women along the mining value chain, working in small-scale mining, large-scale, government, supplies and services, and women in communities affected by the decision to mine. We are a wholly volunteer organization, and neither elected executives, committee members, nor volunteers are paid. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone, including past executives and the current team, for their dedication to this organization. I'd like to warmly welcome you once again to our maiden webinar as we explore the impact of COVID-19, of the COVID-19 pandemic on our members, and even of greater importance is what are our next steps and how can we move positively forward. Our moderator this evening will be Professor Nellie Mutemeri, but before that, we have a short video that I'd like for us to watch, and this should set the tone for our discussions. So please stay on as we show this video. I'll be back.
I'm Georgette Martin. I would like to talk about COVID-19. There is no way to sugarcoat this. COVID-19 has changed our daily lives. I'm working at Rossing Uranium and we've been doing business as usual, with all safety precautions implemented and practiced. What is more concerning to me as a mother is the effect that COVID-19 has on our children's well-being and their daily lives. We have much to do. Be supportive, be alert, be caring, and be ready to fight COVID-19.
The COVID-19 has brought the business to a standstill. All orders were seized and demand were not coming, which is making life difficult for me. I need a fund and want to partner with NGOs to expand their business and a space to showcase the products.
As a woman miner, our gemstone business has been hugely impacted by COVID, as foreign buyers who make up majority of our customers cannot come to Malawi because of global travel restrictions. In addition, as miners and sellers, we need to protect ourselves from spreading and contracting the disease by not traveling to different areas. So for this reason, it has been so painful to survive and take care of our families without doing any business.
Hello, I am Ms. Tashrika Nel, Mine Secretary for Namibia Diamond Corporation. So when asked what my biggest challenge was during this coronavirus pandemic, the first thing that came to mind was obviously working from home. Everyone would wonder why. Basically because I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old that are very busy. They keep me juggling balls between being a full-time parent, and a full-time employee. But I must add, the greatest blessing through this whole process has definitely been that I work for a wonderful company that supports me as a mother and as an employee. And above that, that has been paying me my full salary during this whole period. Not everyone has been as blessed. Thank you.
So those are a few of our members trying to explain to us what they are going through. And so we will now hand over to Professor Nellie Mutemeri, who is an associate professor at the School of Mining Engineering at the Wits University in South Africa. Prof. Nellie is also a mining consultant. She has worked in more than 15 African countries and is knowledgeable about Africa. Prof. Mutemeri was a member of the Management Advisory Group of the World Bank's Communities and Small-Scale Mining Network. Her full bio, which I cannot go through, is available on our website, awimaafrica.org. So I'll hand over now to Prof. Nellie to take us through the next 1 hour of discussions and ideas exchange. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Georgette. You are a wonderful leader. I can only continue to learn from you. Thank you for the introduction. Again, hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm extremely excited about being part of this AWIMA webinar panel, or leading the panel as a facilitator. As we all know, Africa claims many leading positions with regards to the global mineral sector. With our diamonds, with our gold, with our platinum, with our copper, with our cobalt, lithium, tantalum, bauxite, the list goes on in many strategic minerals. We have quite reasonable capitalization of our sector in quite a few countries. And yet, the participation of our people is still quite elusive. And for women, it's even worse. We have the numbers, of course. I think approximately 50% of the more than 9 million people that are involved in mining, and mind you, I think probably 95% of those are in artisanal small-scale mining, women. And yet our share of the wealth pie is very, very tiny. So I'm very concerned, and I'm sure all of you are, about what COVID-19 pandemic is going to do to our efforts to try and grow our share of the wealth pie of the mineral sector in Africa. However, it's all not gloom and doom. We have some women making their mark, and some of them are here with us today on the webinar to share their stories about how COVID-19, the pandemic, is impacting their worlds, as we have also seen in the video. And as life, as women in mining in Africa, as if it's not difficult enough. These women will also share with us their own experiences and ideas about how they're actually going to show resilience and try to overcome the impacts of this pandemic. Not only to survive, but to thrive despite the pandemic itself. Before I introduce you to the panel that we have today of these esteemed African women in mining, I've got a few housekeeping things that I'd like to share with you. One is that the webinar is being recorded to be shared with you after the webinar for those who are interested. Secondly, is with my bio. All the bios of the panelists are on the webinar page as well, for those that are interested in seeing more about our panelists. And lastly, we have a Q&A box, which you can type in your questions as the webinar is going on, and the panel discussion is going on. You can post questions through the Q&A box to our panelists. And then at the end of the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A question where we actually take some of those questions and I'll post them to our panelists so that they can respond. So I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, starting off with Amina Tahiru from Ghana. Amina. I think Amina is still on mute. Amina, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Amina Tahiru from Ghana. I am an SSM operative under the name of AC Zenon Limited. I'm the CEO of AC Zenon, operating from Ghana. I've been in mining for nearly 20 years now. And hopefully, we'll have a lot to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina. I'm going to ask next Pastor Pauline Mundia from Zambia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pastor Pauline from Zambia. I am a gemstone small-scale miner in Zambia, and I mine amethyst, which is the same precious gemstone. At the same time, I'm the Secretary General of the Association of Women in Mining in Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. The next person to introduce themselves is Zenzi Awases from Namibia.
Hi, Prof. Nellie. Hi, everybody else out there on the internet. My name is Zenzi Natasha Awases. I'm a mother of two, hailing from Buntuk, Namibia, and I am a woman in mining by being a geologist here in Namibia.
Thank you, Zenzi. Next is Stella Opakas from Kenya. Stella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Stella from Turkana County in up north Kenya. And I'm the Director for Mineral Resources at the local government. So I look forward to a fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stella. And last but not least is Nakedi from South Africa.
Hi, everyone. I am Nakedi, as Prof. Nellie has said, and I am an owner of an exploration drilling company, surface exploration drilling company, that has been in existence now for over 10 years, so about 12 years this year. And basically, I'm a service provider to the mining industry. And I'm also past chairperson of Women in Mining South Africa, currently holding a position of patron liaison in the organization. Thank you.
Sorry, yes. The facilitator forgot to unmute, and Lindy was very kind. Thank you, Lindy. Women power, working together. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Amina. Amina, you're from Ghana. Ghana, I think, overtook South Africa as the largest producer of gold on the African continent. You have lots of multinationals that are very comfortable working in your country. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that minerals probably have contributed quite a lot to the status of Ghana as a middle income country, right? And as you said, you're a small scale miner. I know, having interacted with you, that you have a lot of experience of mining in Ghana, and you have very serious ambitions to grow your business. To a force to be reckoned with, in spite of the challenges that exist around women participating in the mining sector. So what I'd like to hear from you, Amina, is when you first heard the news about the COVID-19 pandemic, like when it actually started hitting you that this is going to be a big thing, I wonder what your first thoughts were about how this pandemic is going to impact your dreams as an entrepreneur in mining in Africa.
All right, thank you, Prof. Just to give you a bit of background information, the women in SSM in Ghana suffered a major setback to their entrepreneurial dreams and plans about 2 years prior to COVID-19 pandemic. Our government had imposed a blanket ban on all SSM activities in the country. Therefore, our struggle for survival had started since then. However, with the advent of COVID-19, it just made a bad situation even worse, as women had to dig very deep into their survival reservoir in order to find alternative source of income. At the point when the COVID-19 pandemic took hold, I had just begun my operation to resume my mining activities because the mining ban had recently been lifted. Those of us who had mining concession license and apply for new EPA and digging permits, at the same time, I had to raise finance to repair my machineries that had perished during the long downtime plus working capital requirements. The unexpected arrival of COVID-19 immediately brought an end to whatever little progress I had been making. Our hope for restart of our mining operation were dashed in an instant, together with the unavoidable financial losses I had incurred. This is the first time that I have ever experienced something as devastating as COVID-19, being a new phenomenon. I did not know how long it was going to last, 1 week, 1 month, or 1 year. Such uncertainty can scare even the strongest amongst us. During the pandemic, businesses were shut, so I could not buy our spare parts. Government offices were closed to the public, so our mining licenses and permits being processed were put on hold. Our movements were restricted, and therefore I could not travel to our mine sites. In short, we were under lockdown. And I had no control over any action or task we wanted done. All my dreams and plans had to be put on hold until conditions changed favorably for me to get back to our normal way of living. So that was what COVID-19, when I first heard the news brought. And I kept telling my workers, not again. I mean, this was like a second wave of pandemic to us as women in SSM in Ghana. Yeah, considering the fact that we had just returned from the ban.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amina. I think the words and the challenges that you're sharing with our audience and with us all today, I think resonate with a lot of women and men who are plying their trade in the small-scale mining sector in Africa. It's very, very, very touching. I'd like to move to Pastor Mundia. So Pastor, you are from the gemstone industry in Zambia, and to a large extent, gemstones are driven by markets. And I think we've all heard how markets have crashed, and the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on supply chains. Basically, you can't get your inputs to your operation, you can't get your product to market, like was shared in the introductory video. So for you and your members, where this upstream activity of producing gemstones for the market is bread and butter and livelihood issues, I wonder if you could perhaps share with us your thoughts, particularly because you are also a leader in the sector. You're also a leader in getting women organized to raise their voice. What are your thoughts about the long-term impacts? I think Amina spoke about immediate impacts. What about the long-term impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on your business? Particularly, I would like to hear about what it means for women. What are the gender dimensions of this pandemic on women in mining.
Thank you very much, Professor Nellie. Indeed, the challenges have been so much. You know, this COVID-19 pandemic has really affected us so much. And in terms of sales, you know, our sales have really been cut down because of the global lockdown, which has restricted, you know, the international movements. No, as gemstone miners, we depend on the international buyers, you know, that travel to Zambia to buy the rough gemstones. And for the women that are in the value addition, that is making jewelry, our women depend on the tourists. So because of this global lockdown, the tourists are no longer coming the way they used to come. The international buyers are no longer coming. But then one thing that we should have in mind is that there's that strong linkage between gemstone and tourism. These are actually maybe brother and sister. So we have been affected very much, I mean, on that side. And I believe that this is a long-term kind of challenge. But then most important is that we have accepted that it is there, but now it's up to us now to think how do we overcome this challenge? So as women in mining, we have decided to think beyond the physical market whereby a buyer comes all the way to Zambia. So we have thought of coming up with online marketing because we believe that's the only way we can overcome this challenge. But I know that it will take a bit of time, even for some of our members to understand what online marketing is all about. But now the other challenge is on production. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected our production because as women in mining and most of us who are in small scale, we have decided to lay off our workers. Because of failure to have enough sales, we are not able to sustain our operations as usual. So we decided to cut down. And the other thing is, as women, it hasn't been easy for us to travel to our workplace to supervise, the mining operations because of the COVID-19. And being a woman, there's this cultural attitude also whereby you have to ask permission. Please, can I go? And your husband will say, you cannot go. How can you go? If you go there, suppose you catch COVID-19, then it will mean, infecting all of us, the children, and including me, your husband. So that has made it difficult, for us to move. And as a result, the workers have taken advantage. When a worker is on his own and he finds a very good gem, it's very rare that such a worker would surrender or keep that good gem for the owner. So we have missed those good gems, and it's not our fault. It's not the worker's fault. And there's also the issue of the extra cost of keeping the workers' health. The washing of hands, the hand sanitizer, and also the mask. That is a cost because that was not anticipated, but it just came. But now there's nothing that we can do. All we have to do is just to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor. I think that I've known you for many years, and one of the things that I've admired you for is taking on this industry head on. Some of us haven't had the challenge. We kind of on the periphery as practicing academics and that sort of thing, but you have taken on this really challenging sector and you have made a mark on it in Zambia, in the world, and I'd like to commend you for that. So next to share their thoughts with us is Zenzi. Awases. So Zenzi, so you are from Namibia. I think of the many African countries that whose economies are dependent on minerals, I think Namibia is one of those that has a great degree of formalization. You're a geologist, you're the president of the Women in Mining Association of Namibia, and in your association, you have professionals in all aspects of the mining value chain, technical professionals, you have executives, artisanal small-scale mining operators, as well as large-scale mining operators like we saw on the video. So in terms of this COVID-19 pandemic, it obviously affected everyone, right? But what I'd like to hear from you specifically as a professional in the mining sector, what were the immediate impacts on how you work yourself as a professional in the mining sector? How did COVID-19 pandemic affect how you work?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. It's a great question. I thought I'll first tell my story and then I'll take it a bit wider. One of the most immediate effect it had on us as in the professional sort of the large scale mining sector, which is the geologists and everybody else who works in the mine, is the fact that our status changed. We became full-time working moms from home, basically. And I'd like to share a little story. On the eve of the lockdown, I sat my 2 children down and I said to them that, look, for the next 3 weeks at least, it will be just the 3 of us at home and we will do things from here. And then my 11-year-old son looked at me and he says, well, mommy, no offense, but you're about to experience what full-time parenting is all about. And then initially I took offense to what he was saying, but he was, and then I was overwhelmed by mommy guilt. And that in a nutshell sort of summarizes what we felt like. So because when I was told we'll be working from home, the first thing and then there'll be no school, the first thing I did is that I went to the mall and I bought every toy that can possibly keep them occupied while I have my lockdown on my own. And that was basically what he was saying, that, well, actually, mommy, it'll be a bit more than that. And I downplayed it. So I thought, let me ask everybody else in my sphere how they were impacted. So I, over the past week, I sent out a survey. And about 43 women across Africa. I'm so grateful for my sisters from Namibia, Botswana, as far as Abuja, Nigeria, who responded to my survey. And the response was pretty much the same. About 53% of the women said that they became instant full-time stay-at-home mummies. And bearing in mind that our large-scale mining is a 24-hour operation, right? And it requires answers all the time at any time. So we basically ended up juggling virtual meetings, becoming an overnight teacher / tutor for our children, basically trying to explain a long division tactic to your 3rd grader while trying to solve a problem on one of our operations and still trying to be told by your daughter that my teacher didn't teach me that way. So it became quite a bit of juggling all over that. One of the other issues that we face is because we had to work from home, we had to continue, as Jackie said on the video earlier, with business as usual. So when you were working from home, you had to continue with your work as usual. So as a geologist, I am required, for example, to work on big software like ArcGIS. So one of the things we were struggling with is the licensing issue. There was a lot of network instability because COVID-19, in Namibia at least, came at the same time that one of the network cables were broken. So we had internet instability for quite a while. You also had some of our bosses who thought that because you work from home, you are available 24 hours. So we had to balance that out. But most importantly, it was a time to basically put in practice all this work-life balance that we have been preaching all this time. The other thing also is that from the women who were regarded as essential services, in other words, who had to be on the mine as like the shovel operators or the anybody who would work on the plant or who would continue doing mining, about most of them had to travel to their sites by bus. So now you have this concern added to all the other concerns. You don't know where your colleague has been the day before. Did he observe the lockdown procedures? Did he make sure that he washed his hands and did he wear, is he infected or not infected? So you had to worry about that. And then some of them had to work on a site for a bit longer because there were quarantine procedures introduced for some of them as well. So basically it meant that what would have been a 4-week away from home would have meant now for some of the, one lady said she had to stay for about 8 weeks away from her family, which includes her husband and her 3 or 4-year-old daughter. And so now you've got this extra anxiety filled with fear and worry that sometimes translated into depression. The other way we were affected, according to the survey, which is, was financially. I was very pleased to hear that about 80% of the ladies I interviewed bought into Warren Buffett saying who said you cannot rely on your salary alone. So a lot of them were moonlighting, and I love the word that came out of there. They had a lot of side hustling and the side hustling came to a standstill, and which basically meant that you are now impacted financially. It's beyond your control, but you have to spend extra now on things like data. You had to spend extra on airtime for data, etc. In some cases, the ladies I interviewed were mentioning that although their salaries were not affected, so but their spouse's salary was affected because that industry could not operate, like the construction industry, for example. So basically, they had to come back to a 1-salary household, which has been led under a 2-salaried household for a while. And then also some experience pay cuts because we are also shift workers in the mining industry. So we became shift workers. So basically what that meant is your time has been reduced. So you're losing out on that allowance, your shift allowance. So your salary is reduced, although things must continue as normal. Yeah, and then one respondent simply just could not work because of the lockdown restrictions. So basically, in a nutshell, how we were affected, we became super moms. We became full-time stay-at-home mummies, or wives, tutors, etc. Work-life balance actually became a thing. We had to realize that we are actually a whole lot more flexible than we actually thought we were. And then technology became a necessity, not even a luxury anymore. Yeah. That is, in a nutshell, how we were affected, Prof. Nellie. Thank you.
Wow, I'm so impressed by how you reached out to other African women professionals in mining to actually get a sense of how you're being affected, how they're being affected, and how that resonates with you. And I can see already in the chat that a lot of people are actually saying that what you're saying actually resonates with them. So it's difficult enough being a full-time mom. It's difficult enough being a full-time mom in the mining sector. Throw COVID into the mix, that's brutal. That's all I can say. Thank you, Zenzi, for sharing your experiences. So next we have Stella. So Stella is from Kenya. I think for a lot of us, we associate Kenya with tourism. So I think it's great that we have Stella who will share with us her thoughts about the COVID pandemic affecting the mining sector in Rwanda. I think lately we've been seeing that Kenya is really coming onto the stage as wanting to be more in the extractives. We hear about petroleum, we hear about oil and gas, we hear about colored gemstones and gold and such. So Stella, you are a director within the Mineral Resources department in Turkana County in Kenya. And you obviously play a very key role with regards to how the mining sector in Kenya is regulated at a county level. We all know that we rely on our governments to provide the policy and legislative frameworks that ensure that the development of our mineral sector, at least we hope, is optimal as possible. So from that perspective, I would like if you could share with the audience your thoughts about how women and other vulnerable groups who tend to be at much greater risk in times of crisis. And now we have a crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. What are some of the gender-specific responses have you seen or would like to see within the mining sector?
Thank you very much, Professor. For a start, maybe just in the beginning, when COVID came out, the first message was, oh, you know, it does not affect people in hot areas. So in Turkana, people are like, I mean, this is like one of the hottest areas of the country, so we are not really affected. But with time, what we have come to realize is that apparently it is not a respect of persons. So one of the things which I think, one of the responses, rather, which I would like to see actually being enacted is in the messaging of the disease itself, and secondly also in messaging of what we can do to get ahead. Because for one, I would maybe propose for the use of women groups in messaging, because once you message it through women, we have more people getting the information. And coming from this part of the country, which is very vast, and we have the challenge of network not being everywhere. Network accessibility or internet accessibility is a challenge in some areas. So the best route would be using women's groups, because these are very effective. So that would be one area. And then secondly, for those who have internet, maybe we could look at seeing how we can now use this time more constructively. As Pastor Pauline said, especially when it comes to online marketing, because we are getting the gemstones, we are getting some of the gold, and unfortunately, people are taking advantage of the crisis. So they go and buy at their own terms and conditions and not at market rates. So it's very important for us to see how we can put in place policies that protect these people, or come up with innovative ideas to protect our people from the opportunists who are taking advantage of this time to get the products, especially the gemstones or the gold, which are artisanal miners, because here it is still very rudimentary. I would not really call it small scale, I'd still call it artisanal. And the Mining Act of Kenya does recognize artisanal mining. So for us in Kenya, it is not really an illegal activity as it's recognized by the Mining Act 2016. So those are some of the things we need to do. Looking ahead, in our policies, we have to cater for crises. This is something, because it's unprecedented. We've not had this before. So I think that is one of the key areas which as we can look into, especially through the women groups. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stella. We need more competent women like yourself, you know, as role models for optimal regulation of our mineral sector in Africa. Yeah. So I'd like to move on to Lindy. Lindy, you're not least because you're last. So Lindy, you're from South Africa, and one of the few countries on the continent where the equitable participation of women is actually regulated. We have a mining charter that sets targets in terms of the level of involvement and participation. You are the CEO of a company that plays a very important role with regards to the exploration activities that are used to apply geosciences to identify and realize business opportunities from minerals. What I would like you to share with the audience is, given your kind of business, are there any constraints that are specific to your type of business that you have experienced from the COVID-19 pandemic? And also, because of these challenges, do you think it's going to be more difficult for women to enter and thrive in the sector? If you can share your thoughts with us on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Nellie. And thank you, AWIMA, for this opportunity and this platform for us to be able to put our minds together, you know, as African women on this continent. And, you know, I want to start off first by saying that if we look at our past, you know, as all women from all these different countries, we know that we faced some pretty heavy challenges, you know, from political to the health sphere. We faced, and poverty, we faced a lot of challenges, but we've always found a way, you know, to ride those storms and to adapt and become better and grow. So what I'd like to be able to say about the kind of challenges we've experienced, you know, is that already within the exploration space, usually during the different, how can I put it, cycles of mining, you'll find that already when there isn't a COVID-19 happening, and a lot of mines will find a time when they're not necessarily exploring. So already being in the exploration space is a very risky business. You know, it's a very tough business, you know, never mind the fact that just to be able to start up, it's costly. You know, there's very high capital expenditure. So getting into the industry already is a very difficult situation. But with COVID-19, you know, coming back to my micro area where I've seen in the micro level, where we've seen the challenges, is that just coming back, you deal with the people aspects. Our employees also have anxieties, you know, besides just COVID-19, they're thinking about the loss of their jobs, they're thinking about their income, and they're also thinking about wanting to keep their jobs, but staying safe, you know, and staying healthy. So we're constantly having to deal with having to talk to those issues, you know, as employers. But I think also for myself, you know, there was a time when I was fearing having to even go back to work. The only reason why we've actually managed to go back, you know, which is very different from some of the other SMEs, they'll tell you they haven't been able to go back to work yet. You know, some of the contractors who have to work underground have not been able to go back to work. I too, like Zenzi, decided to just sort of speak to some of the other women who are working within the mining space to find out what their experiences are, what they're going through. And we are one of the lucky companies that have been able to go back to work. And with going back to work, then comes the aspect where we need to now start adjusting or start coming up with operating procedures for working within a COVID-19 environment, which comes sometimes with effects that are of little or no effect on the business itself. But some of the changes or the adaptations that we now have to make come with financial burdens, you know, because as soon as you have to go back to the mine, there's a requirement that your client has that, look, we need you to be able to test your own people, isolate them if necessary, and, you know, come with the proper procedures, basically, to make sure that people who are coming back to work are safe, they are not sick, they are all well. And if you did not, you know, in one of the webinars that I joined, Georgette mentioned that sometimes our small companies fail to have a contingency when it comes to your finances, you know, have a reserve where you know that when something bad happens or when there's a problem that happens and you can't get revenue, there will be that cushion that you can be able to go back to, you know. And I learned that a long time ago to be able to do that. So you're able to then put in place certain things by having that reserve. But when you don't have that reserve and you have to now from, I think we were on lockdown for about a month where there was no revenue. So if there's no money coming in, you're unable to then put in place the things that need to be put in place in order for your people to be able to come back to work safely, for you to be able to buy testing kits or thermometers to be able to check if people's temperatures are fine, or even to create a space where people can be isolated. So it comes with some really big financial burdens, especially for small companies, you know, that are working within the space. Obviously, the bigger mining houses can be able to assist, but to a certain extent, because you know, from what I've come to understand is that the client also goes through its own pressures currently. One of the mines where we are currently working, theirs is both an export market as well as a local market. So their pressures now are that they can't move their product to the export market. So their finances are also now under strain. So it becomes a ripple effect all the way down where you cannot expect that assistance, even if that company is bigger. So now you find a way to sort of adapt. So it's the people issues that you have to deal with, anxieties and fears. It's working with fewer staff members, because with some of the interventions that the mine would come up with are that for social distancing, please have only 2 people within a bakkie, you know, your car. And if you're going to only have 2 people, and let's say you have 10 employees, that means now you have to have 5 bakkies. Whereas before, you could literally work in an operation with about 2 or 3 bakkies on the site. So all those changes have a ripple effect, you know, especially huge financial ones. Some of the changes, so of an operational nature, as I mentioned, have an expense attached to them. Not being considered an essential service, therefore there's a loss of income. And a lot of the times then you have to also carry the expenses that you have to carry on a monthly basis as per normal. And what we found is that we've had to now pay our salaries on a monthly basis. But the structures that have been put in place, let's say by government via UIF, can be an assistance, yes. But there are times when even those systems are on failure. You cannot do a submission because the system is down. That month, there is no assistance. So you cannot say to your employees, no, I'm sorry, I couldn't get the money through, you know, the UIF, you know, or labor system or whatever the tool that was put in place to assist the small companies. So those are the challenges that we are finding are causing the burdens, you know, of small companies. Some have to close down because they can no longer carry the expenses that they were used to carrying when they can have an income. The client's expectations, as well as I have mentioned, as well as their strained finances. So basically, those are some of the challenges that we found as SMEs that prevent us from being able to work going forward. But we've been very lucky that on the project that we've been working on, we've been essential. We were needed there because we had sinkholes, you know, but some other smaller companies, not so lucky. And this is a huge challenge because even before COVID-19, it was a challenge for any new supplier to come onto the market. You know, so opening up that market was important then, it's even more important now, you know, so it's going to be even more challenging. Yeah.
Sounds like it's huge.
But there are solutions. There are ways forward. There are definitely ways forward.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lindy. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. So I'm trying to kind of keep up with time. So I'm going to ask. We had a second round of questions for our panelists. I'm going to ask them to, and these are important because this is where I was going to ask them about kind of forward-looking, more positive outlooks in terms of how they're going to take things forward beyond, or if we have to continue to exist with COVID, just, you know, like in spite of or despite COVID, how are we going to move forward? So I'm going to start with you, Amina, and if you can try to be as brief as possible. You are alive and kicking, or you're still kind of, you know, doing your business. What I wanted, if you could share very briefly with us, is some of the skills that you have that are helping you to be more resilient to the impacts of COVID.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I'm still alive and kicking. And as you know, to be a woman in SSM, one has to be tough, determined, focused, hardworking, and be able to see a clear path for success. And that has always been my goals. This is because we have overcome so many prejudices and challenges. On the plus side, these attributes are what usually helps us in the difficult times. Therefore, when COVID-19 reached our shores and flexed its muscles, we knew that we could take up the challenge and fight for our survival. I was determined that, that wasn't going to be the end of my mining life. And so what I came up with, I used the experiences that I learned from the mining, and my dreams and aspiration. I had learned that when one part of my way was blocked, that is, I seek another and another, but never turn back. For this is how we move forward and progress. So I'm going to share with you, how I have been able to stay alive and kicking. Working on the land as SSM can easily be transformed into working on the land to farm. Similarly, having to prepare meals in a kitchen every day can be transformed into catering business or making special dishes to sell. I am a survivor COVID-19 because I have been able to use the skills learned from mining and being able to transfer them to different situations in order to earn a living. This is because in mining, I have developed skills such as planning, budgeting, preparation, basic construction, plumbing, using plants and machineries, and equally important, knowing where to go and find help when the needs arrive. All of this can easily be transferred to other types of businesses when there is the need and determination to do so. Today, I grow my own vegetables with surplus, offer catering services to meetings and conferences, provide plumbing and electrical services in my neighborhood, and produce from my own kitchen a pretty good representation of Ghana's famous pepper sauce called shito for the local markets. I am confident that when COVID-19 leaves our shore, or better still dies, I shall once again pick up my tools and head straight back to the mines. And I hope that this applies to all my fellow women in the SSM, because that is what I have been preaching to all of them, so that we can all stay alive and kicking. And when COVID-19 is over, we can then head back to our various sites and continue doing what we love doing best. So.
Thank you, Amina. I think you touched on alternative livelihoods and diversification of income. And these are the things that I think a lot of the people, development projects particularly, that are working with the small-scale mining sector are always preaching. And thank you for mentioning those, because I think a lot of members and practitioners that are in the sector can identify and actually learn from what you've shared around alternative livelihoods and income diversification. I would like to quickly move to Pastor Pauline. So as we mentioned earlier, you are in the Association of Women in Mining in Zambia. So I would like if you could share with the audience how you see the power of being organized, helping you and your members to actually realize opportunities to strengthen your voice so that you can actually land on the positive side of COVID, as Amina mentioned.
Thank you very much, Professor. When you are, when there's power in organized, institution, in Zambia we have what we call the Association of Zambian Women in Mining, and our members, the miners themselves, those that are in gemstones, the women miners who are involved in base metals, like recently, of course, there's this rush of gold, the copper, manganese, and we've got traders, those who trade in all types of gemstones. And we also have ladies who are involved in value addition. And all these are our members in Zambia. So we have got this big voice, and this big voice has got so much influence to the extent whereby, you know, we're even able to have an audience with the Republican president. No, before it was not possible. And out of the meeting that we had with our Republican president, you know, for a long time we were struggling with an office accommodation, but then after that meeting, you know, he just gave a presidential command that give the women in mining office accommodation, and it was done. As Women in Mining Association, we have actually promoted the need for gender mainstreaming in mining, because for a long time, you know, there was this notion of saying male-dominated. Mining was regarded as male-dominated. But with the coming up of AWIMA, in short, you know, that notion of male-dominated is somehow not being, is phrasing out. So we are seeing a number of women that are having mines, and also the young girls, you know, we have seen a number of women also taking up courses like in geology and mining courses at the University of Zambia, unlike before, because everybody was shining away to say, no, this is just for men, this is just for men. But then we say that we have to put a stop, because men and women were all the same in terms of thinking. What a man can do, a woman can also do. But now I was saying that the strength, no, that is in unity is so much that you are able to do a lot, you are able to share a lot. The little that you have, you are able to share with the other person. But then as a unity, we have got members who are well established, people who have been in the sector for a long time, like myself and the other colleagues. We are able to share markets, see, with the newcomers, those that have not yet been established, especially where in instances whereby, you know, you can get a good order and you feel that you are not able not to fulfill that order on time. So now you engage, you invite people, the other women in the association, so that at least you are able to come up with a consolidated shipment. So this is making our women, you know, being interested more and also to work more, and this has also improved, you know, their mining operations. And then the other issue also is sharing knowledge of, you know, our experiences. There are some people that have been there for a long time, and they have become actually mentors for the young ones. And like in our executive, we have got the young ones, you know, as young as 32 years, 20-something years, and we have invited all these to be part of the executive so that they're able to learn now from the elderly people like myself, because we cannot be there for a long time. We have to come out and leave room for the smaller ones. So we are doing that as an association. But then now in terms of what do we do with this COVID? Yes, the COVID has come. We don't know when it's going to go out, but then it doesn't mean that that's the end of life. Life continues. So we are encouraging our women that instead of just selling their stones in rough form, they should add value. Because when they add value, you know, they can sell locally. There are people now who are interested in wearing jewelry. So we are encouraging our women. And then apart from that, you know, in Zambia, the mining areas that are given to small scale is up to 400 hectares. That is big land. So we are encouraging our women that instead of just complaining to say, no, now what do we do because of this COVID? Why not utilize the land for farming? You can farm. And when you farm, then you are able to feed the workers, and you are even able to feed yourself and have extra money for yourself.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pastor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. We're running out of time, and I wanted to give just half a minute to Zenzi and Stella to share their thoughts. Zenzi, if you can start on in terms of how you're going to hold on to the progress that you have made as women in mining, participating in mining.
Prof. Nellie, half a minute is a tall order. I'll try. I don't think I'll make it. Like, can we make it 1 minute, maybe 2? But here's the point. I think it's very important to understand that we've made progress. That's a huge tick, and I think we need a huge applaud for that. But I've always maintained that although the mining industry, especially in LSM, has been gender diverse, it's always been. It's never been gender inclusive. Okay, and there's a long story behind that, but we don't have time for that now. And I've also always maintained that for gender inclusion to become a reality, it requires a paradigm shift. Trust is still an issue in the sector. The industry is still holding on to archaic way of thinking, input versus output, performances, also policies that are still very archaic. But what is very important is that we continue to be the voice and continue raising awareness about the situation. We are here to say we're not going anywhere, okay? The sector has to adapt now to the new normal. If there's anything that we've done with this post-COVID-19, we have proven that we are open to change and we can adapt to the new norms. No mining operation has come to a standstill because a woman is a mother. No mining operation till today has come to a standstill in the past 2 months that we've been having this pandemic because a woman is being a woman. Operations have continued, so I think it's about time that people acknowledge that. But for that to happen, we need to be, oh man, it's my 30 seconds over. I can't even talk that quickly anymore.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay. For us to maintain the progress, we have to be, we must continue doing what we're doing until we no longer need a WIM group to point out what should be obvious. Okay, and for that to happen, we need the measure of that will be that the private sector is aligned to the public sector. There are many beautiful legal frameworks out there that talk to how we want to increase gender diversity I think on government level, but the private sector has been lacking behind that. And I think also it's very important to know that we need to establish a monitoring body very specific to gender issues to see how far are we with what we are saying in, for example, the gender policy on a national level. I don't even want to talk about continental level, but you can start small. Right now, as WIM groups, we are still trying very hard as to prove why we exist. So that perception needs to change. Also, a measure of that will be when we are consulted on important matters such as gender policies in the mineral sector. Now, I'd like to acknowledge the CEO of the Chamber of Mines of Namibia, Mr. Weston Malangu, is on here. Thank you very much for joining us, Weston. But something like that shows that Weston believes in what we're doing. And I'm hoping that from here on forth, we will be consulted on issues that concern the sector. Some members might think that will take forever, but I want to put it to you that I believe personally that the change will happen in our lifetime. I'm reminded of the liberation struggle. It took almost every African country many years to fight the liberation war from colonization. The point is, we are still sitting here today with our parents eating the fruits of that struggle. My wish, though, is that the sector can now see that our sleeves are rolled up, and we want to partner with our male counterparts in making the sector very different. We are not here trying to be seen differently. We really want to partner, and I'm hoping that in the past 2 months we were able to prove that we don't want to be just seen as a female geologist. We want to be seen as there's a geologist. How can we better this country or the continent? I think that's about all I have time for, but thank you. We are ready to basically move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those nuggets of wisdom, Zenzi. I think I'll move quickly to Stella. Stella, so if you can perhaps share with us what you think might be the competing demands for resources and what the trade-offs government should make or that you would like to see. Particularly, as I think Zenzi touched on this, is that we want the minerals to actually transform our economies in Africa, and gender equality must continue to be as part of that and on the agenda and properly mainstreamed. What are some of the trade-offs that you actually see government making to be able to do this, given this huge demand on resources that is coming from the COVID pandemic?
Thank you, Professor. In Turkana right now, we're not only dealing with COVID, but you also have locust invasion. So we find that food security is also an issue. So because of the locusts. So I think governments will have to diversify. That comes with no, there'll be no questions about it. They'll have to diversify. How else can we improve the economic activities of the people around us? And so I think mining and mineral resources, maybe more budget will have to be allocated to the mining sector as well. And governments will also have to partner with women organizations or affiliated organizations. In Kenya, we have the Association of Women in Extractives in Kenya. So, I mean, which helps promote the role of women in the extractive industry. And they have helped us as a county government to carry out some trainings of people, I mean, of women on the benefits they can gain from the extractive sector. So these are some of the basic things which we will have to do. And then knowledge will have to be shared. Nobody is going to stay with the monopoly of knowledge in the sector. Because now, for example, we might have to reach out to maybe women in other areas. Because, for example, we do have blue sapphires here in Turkana. And we might need to know how, instead of just keeping the blue sapphire, how can I make this a simple earring, simple necklace, which I would like to put on? These are some of the things which we will have to work on. Thank you. I'm just conscious of the time. I don't want to talk too much.
Thank you very much, Stella. I just want to let the audience know that our organizers have let us know that for those of you who are able to continue with us, we have until 1:15. So we have another 10 minutes to be able to hear the nuggets of wisdom from our panelists. I think, Lindy, you're the last in this round of questions that I had before we move on to the Q&A, or the questions that have been posted in our Q&A box. So I think you already touched on this a little bit about strategies for engaging women in mining going forward in what remains a male-dominated industry. Maybe you can share a bit more on that.
Yes. As my friend Rulabukheng likes to call it, it's a male-populated industry, not necessarily dominated. But, you know, I think that if we look at the bigger picture, you know, I was doing an exercise today within my company. When you do fatal risk compliance on equipment and all of that, you'll find that there's certain deviation somewhere and you have to go and fix. You know, and a lot of the times what we do as contractors is that you go and fix something quickly so that you can be able to come back to the job, you know, and continue drilling and continue working. But that's almost like an idea of constantly putting out fires. But if we, you know, I think that COVID has kind of given us the opportunity to stop and think. You know, we've had a lot of time to stop and think. And it's almost, if I can think about it along the lines of almost a metaphorical thing of destroying and then rebuilding, you know. So for us to be able to rebuild where we want to go, we need to start visualizing exactly what it is that we want to see and then strategizing according to that. So when I'm thinking about ways going forward, is that as Africans, you know, because now that it's almost as if COVID had sort of like left us to say, look, we are on our own. All of us have to deal with our own issues. Every other country has had to deal with COVID for themselves. You know, nobody could come to anybody else's rescue. So as Africans, we need to then realize that, look, instead of just putting out fires, we need to stop and think and start strategizing to think, how do we have lasting solutions for the issues or the problems that we think we have, you know, as a continent? And working together to think, how can we start collaborating? So my idea is mainly to start visualizing what it is that we want to see going forward, whether through these industries that can change many communities and therefore change our countries. Visualize, collaborate. You know, within Africa, Africa needs to be able to trade within. I don't see or understand why, when you have products and we're constantly thinking about the outside market, why are we not trading from within and then out? You know, so we need to start seeing ourselves as the possible market as well. speaking to the ideas that, you know, when the African Union was formed, and the idea is to now be united and to be able to cross-trade, you know, to be able to move easily amongst the countries. So that's another thing that we need to possibly put our thoughts to and start moving towards that direction, to start seeing what the solutions would be. So visualize the bigger picture, collaborate, plan, have innovation as part of the answers, you know, because there's a lot of things that we are currently now innovating. When you hit a problem, you come up with a solution. As women, we do that all the time even. You know, at home, you'd find that my mother would only have vegetables or cabbage in the house, but I know I ate cabbage in 3 or 4 different ways, you know, because she could innovate. And that's the power that we have. So innovation is key. Adapting is very important. So now when you know that I cannot do things as I used to do them, I'm not going to try and plug into an old system, but I'll come up with a new way and adapt to a new environment. So we need to be flexible like that and be willing or being able to diversify. I love what Amina said. When you realize that I'm going hungry, I can't just say, but this is all I knew. There's other things that we can possibly do. We draw strength from other talents, or even more of what we possibly know or have in our hand. You know, I'm very spiritual, so I'll remember the verse that says, you know, what do you have in your hand? You know, Moses. So you've got to be able to start with also the talents, those that have been given to you. So diversify, have a continental approach to finding solutions like this. This platform is about finding solutions from each other. And go out into the world once we've also found our own solutions, because we do hold the power to have our own solutions. That's me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lindy. I think you've kind of rounded up everything in terms of what the other people have shared. And I think given the time constraints that we have at the moment, unfortunately, we will not be able to go into the Q&A as we planned, but what our organizers have promised me is that we will provide written responses to the questions that we have received. I think it's more important for us to have the last few minutes just to share some ideas about the way forward. I had some highfalutin professorial type comments that I was going to make. I'm going to step away from those and give our esteemed president of AWIMA the opportunity to actually make the final comments. But first of all, just to say thank you to our panelists and to the audience for your very active participation. The chat and the Q&A box have been just buzzing throughout the panel discussion. But we promise we will try to answer your questions as well as we can through written communication. Some of them might be direct to yourselves, or they'll be posted on the AWIMA website. So just watch the space for that communication. With that, I would like to hand over to you, Georgette. I know that just the last comment for me is that we know that the Africa Mining Vision espouses gender inclusivity, and I think the comments that all of these people that have been on our panel be mentioning are very much in line with us realizing the vision for making minerals in the African continent lead to broad-based sustainable development. Thank you. Georgette, over to you.
Thank you, everybody. So passionate, so inspirational, and a lot of knowledge shared from great women on the continent. Thank you, everybody. I would like to leave us with just a few things that I think that we can do. We are moving into an era where we all know that there's nobody going to hand anything to us. Nobody. And people keep saying, what is this person doing? What is this group doing? But we all have to do something. We have to take action. What are some of the thoughts I would like on a personal level? Every time that we are doing something that we think can empower somebody in terms of economics, what are you going to buy? What do you need that is in this mining sector that a woman is doing? Let's think critically and let's be responsible to support their actions in the sector. We are flying to Dubai, we are flying to all sorts of places to buy jewelry. Let's start looking at what is going on the continent. Let's employ women where we can. Let's use the services of women where we can. At institutional level, for those who are here and are listening to us, who are in all those big institutions, when you are taking decisions, invite women to the table. Seek their views. Let them be part of the decision making. And then from us, from AWIMA, we are launching something we call the AWIMA Jewelry Project. And we will start with a survey. We will put it on our website, and we'll be very happy if everybody who can will participate in the website, because we want to do something, start something on our own, so we can support ourselves as women groups on the continent. So please go to our website for further information. Also, we are on Twitter and LinkedIn. I can't remember. I think it's AWIMA. I will let Zenzi do that. We'll put it in the chat so I don't get it wrong. So it's been an inspiring afternoon. We should do this more often, maybe twice a year. And tomorrow we have another webinar, a webinar for the same thing, different set of people of women from the continent, but it will be in French. Tomorrow, same time. Yes, it's the same time tomorrow. But before we go, we've got someone who's been taking notes. Vanessa, she's been taking visual notes, and so would like Vanessa to close this program up for us with her visual notes that she took. But I'm thanking everybody from the very bottom of my heart. Wow. Wow. Prof. Nellie, any words?
Oh, no, I think in the words of Kwame Nkrumah, onward and forward, never backwards.
This is awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. I mean, we can see all our words here. Everything, our thoughts have been captured. So lovely. This will be put on our website as well, and so everybody can save it. And we can put it up as our laptop screen so we can remind ourselves. I love this. Thank you, everybody. The future is female and she is African. Thank you.
Thank you.